안녕하세요. 매일매일 운동하기를 실천하고 있는 동탄 왕코입니다. 오늘은 12월 30일 수요일입니다. 지금 아침 11시고요. 제가 방금 코로나 검사를 받고 돌아왔습니다. 그래서 코로나 검사 받은 썰을 풀까 합니다. 역시 진정한 유튜버라면 코로나 검사 정도는 한 번은 받아줘야 진정한 유튜버가 아니겠습니까? 아침 8시에 출발을 했어요. 제가 이 시간에 회사 근처까지 가는 건 처음이었던 것 같아요. 현재 저희 집에서. 차 엄청 막히대요. 날씨도 엄청 좋아요. 영하 10도. 그래서 오늘 날씨가 이렇게 좋은가 봅니다. 하늘이 너무 맑아요. 코로나 검사 받았는데, 뭐 간단한 문진 작성하고, 온도 체크하고, 네, 면봉 2개가 일단 간호사분께서 준비를 하십니다. 하나는 입 안을 한 번씩 긁어주고요. 이거는 뭐 그냥 아무렇지도 않아요. 근데 이제 코 속으로 면봉이 긴 게 들어갑니다. 와, 이거 엄청 아파요. 네, 엄청 아파요. 사실 눈물 납니다. 네, 눈물 찔끔 나요. 제 아는 동생도 코로나 검사를 받았었는데 눈물이 났다고 하더라고요. 네. 와, 근데 이 정도일 줄은 몰랐어요. 주사의 고통이 한 10이라고 치면은 코로나 검사는 9, 9에서 8 정도입니다. 근데 주사는 한 번 맞고 나면은 안 아프잖아요. 그냥 뭐 아무렇지도 않잖아요. 코로나 검사는 제가 검사하고 저희 집까지 오는데 30분 정도 걸렸거든요. 근데 30분 동안 아파요. 30분 동안 여기가 얼얼하고 콧물이 계속 나는 듯한 그런 느낌이 납니다. 근데 지금 이제 검사 받고 나서 한 2시간 정도 흘렀는데 지금은 괜찮아요. 아무렇지도 않아요. 오히려 좀 더 상쾌한 느낌? 뭐 그런 게 있습니다. 뭐 어떤 다른 사람들은 하루 뒤까지 아프다고 하더라고요. 근데 저는 뭐 괜찮습니다. 근데 코로나 검사를 받은 이유는 장례식장에서 상주를 했기 때문에 회사에 복귀하기 전에 코로나 검사를 받아야 돼요. 저희 큰애 삼촌도 코로나 검사를 받았답니다. 그 장례식이 끝나고 난 후에 몸이 좀 안 좋으셔가지고 불안해서 코로나 검사 받았는데 저희 큰애 삼촌이 음성이 나왔고 뭐 저도 당연히 음성이 나오겠죠. 네. 만약에 2번 다시 하고 싶지 않아요. 코로나 검사를. 생각보다 좀 많이 아프고 괴롭습니다. 네, 그 출장을 자주 나가는 친구는 여러 번 받았다고 하니까 대단하다고 느껴지네요. 네, 끝이에요. 코로나 검사 끝. 썰 푸는 거 끝. 오늘 날씨 진짜 너무너무 좋아요. 진짜 추우니까는 날씨가 확실히 좋네요. 하늘이 엄청 파랍니다. 어제도 운동을 많이 했어요. 영상 끝나고 나서도 스쿼트랑 턱걸이를 계속했고요. 팔굽혀펴기도 계속했고요. 지금도 영상 찍기 전에 스트레칭 먼저 하고 나서 지금 영상 찍고 시작한 겁니다. 똑같이 영상 찍는 이 시간에는 팔굽혀펴기랑 윗몸 일으키기 위주로 하고요. 그 다음에 점심 먹고, 영상 끝나고 점심 먹고, 스쿼트랑 턱걸이, 그다음에 팔굽혀펴기를 계속 하도록 하겠습니다. 역시 운동할 땐 CNN이죠.
Concern here, imports might be carrying the virus.
The pandemic's now robbing many of even a minimum income.
This family $3 per month.
The country's always been changing, but it's never been as fast as it has been.
We're gonna go see if he has anything to say.
Was it your team that poisoned the family?
I'm David Culver in Shanghai, China, and this is CNN.
So tonight, the coronavirus is ripping through California. Stay-at-home orders are being extended for millions in Southern California in the Joaquin Valley. They were set to end this week, but there are no ICU beds left there because of the explosion in cases after the Thanksgiving holiday. California's top health official is warning that some hospitals will need to get ready for what he calls crisis care and hard choices. And an epidemiologist at UCLA says this is no longer a matter of waves or surges, but a viral tsunami. With Kamala Harris now preparing to become vice president, Alex Padilla will become the next United States Senator from California. He will be making history himself in these historic times, and he joins me now. Good evening, sir. Thank you, Senate Designate Padilla. Thank you for joining us. I appreciate it.
Good evening, Don. Good to be with you tonight.
So the situation in your state is nothing less than dire. Some ICUs, as I said, in Southern California, at zero capacity. Other hospitals are preparing to ration care. Could people who truly need help be turned away?
So, I mean, you hit the nail on the head, Don. The situation truly is dire. We can't emphasize that enough. You look at too many regions of the state with 0% ICU capacity. You look at the long lines, not just at COVID testing sites, but at food banks, food pantries. You know, it's why this discussion over the survival checks in Congress is so frustrating, because there's literally people's lives on the line. We don't have time for the politics that have been played in the Capitol in recent days. So our message is going to continue to be, anybody listening, please stay at home as much as possible. Do what's necessary to protect yourself and your loved ones and your community. When you're out and about, wear your mask. This is not a partisan issue. It's a matter of life and death for far too many. Respect the physical distancing and all the other public health protocols that we've been hearing since March.
So, you talked about the people in line and all that. What? It takes resources, right, to deal with
와,
this.
진짜 오늘 날씨 너무 좋네요,
What does the state
진짜.
need right now to deal with this worsening crisis?
We need help. And you know, this most recent package that was finally signed after unnecessary delays, while it's helpful for now, nowhere near enough, and certainly nowhere not enough to get us to the end of the pandemic, which is still nowhere in sight. So we need to continue to support struggling families. We need to continue to support small business owners. We're not going to be able to rebuild our economy until we get to the other side of the pandemic. And look, in your prior segment, you talked about even with the big uptick in manufacturing, distribution, administration of vaccines, you know, for sufficient penetration of our national population, it's going to be a while. So we need to continue to hang tight, but federal resources to sustain the economy, federal resources to sustain our hospital and healthcare infrastructure and the essential workers, frontline workers behind it. Again, this is not a partisan issue. This is impacting blue states, red states, purple states, everybody in between. And can't wait for the true national leadership that will begin on January 20th.
I've got to ask you because, you know, New York City, in New York State, we were dealing with in the beginning of the pandemic a lot, right, because of the people coming into this country, especially from Asia and from Europe, and we had such a big hub and people come in here. California, for the most part, spared, right, except, you know, you have some of the most restrictive, you know, shutdowns there, restaurants and that sort of things. Why are you dealing with such, why are there so many cases now in California? Have people not been taking it seriously? What's going on in California right now?
Yeah, look, I think if you look at the numbers and the charts for the better part of the year, Governor Newsom's quick, bold action paid dividends. You know, our curve was relatively flat, especially on a per capita basis for a good chunk of the year. But again, as you said, you know, we've been hearing about whether it's COVID fatigue and people maybe getting a little too comfortable thinking they would be immune or that the worst of it was over when it wasn't true. Second, California can do all the things it needs to do, but if you have people still coming in and out from other states that have been less restrictive, right? Arizona is just right next door, for example, or all the people that flew throughout Thanksgiving weekend. All of that is now coming home to roost. So once again, we've got to tighten the belt in terms of
코로나가 언제 끝날까요?
in terms of public health and minimizing
백신
exposure, to try to
접종이
flatten the curve down once again.
내년
Well, we hope you
안에
guys get it under control.
주요
I want to talk now
국가는
about the moment where
접종이
Governor
끝났다고요.
Newsom
왠지
asked you to
진짜
represent
백신에
California
문제가
in the Senate.
없다면
We were talking about all that
내년에 끝날 거고
parents sacrificed for you. Here it is.
고생특위원회에서 치료제가 나온다고 하는데
Can you imagine what they
뭐
mom would be
치료제만
thinking now as
나와도
they ask you if you want to be the next U.S. Senator of the United
약
States?
먹으면
The great state of
되나? 근데
California.
걸리는 것 자체가 이미 문제인가요?
You sure?
이거에 정확한
This is the
지식이
official.
없어서
This is the ask, brother.
그냥 치료제가 나오면 단순 그냥 감기로 봐도 되는 건지 독감으로 봐도 되는
I'm honored,
건지
man. And I'm humbled because of them. I can't tell you how many pancakes my dad flipped or eggs he scrambled, trying to provide for us, or into the many, many years of my mom cleaning houses, doing the same thing.
What is it's very moving. What is the most important thing that you want to accomplish in the Senate?
No, I think it's bringing
뭐
that
세계 여행이나 이런 거는
it's not
진짜
unique to my family, but my family is one of the many, many. I think you can tell in that
3년 뒤 모든 나라가 다
my
백신 접종이 다
journey
끝났을 때
being raised by proud immigrant
80%
parents who worked
이상
hard, sacrificed, struggled,
동남아나 이런
in their
나라들까지
pursuit
접종이
of the
끝나려면은
American dream. And in one generation,
진짜 몇년 걸리겠죠.
short order cook
4년,
that helps
4년
raise
정도.
3 children to be
전
public
40살인데
servants, all 3 of us.
40살이 돼서 해외를 여행을 갈 수
The
있을까
American dream is alive,
기대를
but it's a
해봅니다.
lot harder to reach, required too many families. The struggle to realize that American dream was too tough for too many, even prior to the pandemic. And now, as we've been discussing, the pandemic has only exacerbated so many of the gaps and divides in the nation, whether it's the income inequality, whether it's access to education, even fundamental access to healthcare. Access to healthcare is important not just during a pandemic, it is a fundamental right for everybody at all times.
Listen, I have to run, but I've got to ask you about this. Listen, I think that everyone congratulates you and they're very happy for you. But with Kamala Harris, becoming vice president-elect and becoming vice president, there won't be any black women in the Senate. That is an issue of diversity when it comes to our electors, especially in the Senate.
Yeah, no, look, I agree, and it shouldn't be an either or. I'm proud to be the first Latino representing California in the United States Senate in our 170-year history. That's an important voice to include in all the deliberations and decision making that will take place once I get there. But so is the voice of black women. I agree, and so it just reminds us that if you look at California's entire leadership, the constitutional officers, our Senate representatives, it does reflect the population of California. You can't say the same for every state. So we have a lot of work to do to make sure that all perspectives are included at every level of leadership, at the federal government, state government, and local government across the country.
Senate Designate Padilla, thank you so much. Happy New Year to you. Congratulations.
Thank you, Don. You too. Please stay safe.
Thank you. You as well. So 1 week to the election that will decide who controls the Senate. We're going to go live to Georgia for the latest on the high stakes runoffs. That's right after this.
Let's roll cam now.
I'm Daoud Kuttab, the Director General of Community Media Network in Amman, Jordan. We are a media NGO that operates a community radio, Radio Al-Balad, and a news website, AmmanNet. Our goal is to help communities, marginalized groups, women's groups, youth, and the disabled. Also, we work a lot with Syrian refugees to help them use media to tell their stories and to empower them to change and improve their lives. When the pandemic started, I quickly realized that we had to do something, and so I decided that we should do do something about how to teach people to deal with the coronavirus. I think as the knowledge base of the medical part of the pandemic becomes known, we're more interested now in both the emotional and the social aspects of the pandemic. We're also interested in more initiatives encouraging people to think at how to do things without having to depend on the globalization. You can do so many things now with what is available in your town, in your village, in your community. So it has actually helped the self-reliance a lot more, and we want to emphasize these issues of self-reliance. And so we couldn't talk in a very national or global way. We had to really be super local. We had to really come down to the needs of people, listen to them and talk to them and tell them what happens outside their street is something that's relevant to us.
When you follow a story, you may be asked to take risks.
These protests are a test for Hamas, where Iraqi troops would pre-position and these Americans would advise them. The protesters are just outside a military base. They're throwing rocks. Any understanding between Israel and Gaza could quickly fall apart again.
You witness persistence, and that's where change happens.
The one thing they have in common is a determination to keep going.
I'm Melissa Bell in Paris, and this is CNN.
So tonight we're learning nearly 2.5 million people have now voted early in Georgia's crucial Senate runoffs. But this is a race still very much up for grabs. The nation is watching because Election Day is only 1 week away. Results will decide who controls the Senate. But Republican incumbents Kelly Loeffler, David Perdue are now in a race to keep up, not only with their Democratic rivals, but also with the roadblocks to COVID financial recovery, first laid down by President Trump and now Mitch McConnell. The chaos on Capitol Hill overshadowing the race. CNN's Kyung Law and our team on the ground in Georgia spent today trying to get some answers from the candidates. And Kyung joins me now. Kyung, good evening to you. Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to see you. It's just 1 week to go until this runoff, right? But Republican Senators Loeffler and Perdue,
Just 1 week.
just 1 week. They are siding with President Trump in favor of this $2,000 stimulus, these payments. What are you hearing down there in Georgia?
Yeah, you know, it's really interesting because this has been such a point of contention among the candidates here in Georgia, on the Democratic side as well as the Republican side. What we are seeing in the actions of the Republican incumbent senators today is the influence of President Donald Trump and his strength with the base here. They now agree that it should be higher, that these payments that they had certainly indicated that they were not in favor of raising should now be higher because of what the president wants. I want you to listen to Senator David Perdue.
I want to thank the president openly for signing that COVID bill on Sunday night to bring more aid to the state of Georgia. We brought $47 billion in the first round of CARES that helped 174,000 businesses and saved 1.5 million jobs. And I've talked to the president repeatedly over the weekend. His heart was, we've got to do this, we've got to do this now, and we don't want to wait. We don't trust the other side that will do it right, and so that's why he signed it into law.
You heard that applause as the senator was mentioning the president's name. Well, he's very popular with the base here. They need the base in order to win. That's why you heard the other Republican senator, Kelly Loeffler, say this.
Well, I said I support it. Look, we have to provide relief to Americans because Democrats have locked our country down. They've played politics with this moment and refused to pass relief month after month after month.
So you also spoke with voters. How do they feel about these stimulus payments?
And we want to make real clear, Don, that the people who show up at the Perdue and Loeffler events, and that's where we focused our energy today, going to the events, talking to their supporters and seeing how they feel. These are the Republican faithful. They are the Republican base. They show up waving Trump flags. They show up wearing red hats. They're not wearing Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue shirts, and that's important to note. And you see it in what they tell us. They're not as concerned that suddenly the senators want to vote for $2,000 versus $600, or that there's a nuance of policy that's shifted. What they're most concerned with is that these senators align themselves with Trump. That's why you're seeing the senators at times, twist themselves into a pretzel in order to make sure that they keep the president happy and also try to encourage people to vote.
Yeah, giving Trump a big old bear hug as often as they can. Thank you, Kyung. I appreciate that. I want to bring in now CNN senior political analyst Kirsten Powers, also CNN political commentators Alice Stewart and Bakari Sellers. There you guys are. I was wondering where you've been. Good evening to all of you. Alice, the president said jump on the $2,000 relief checks, and Loeffler and Perdue said how high. What's the impact of the last minute chaos on the race down there?
Yeah, well, they said how high, and he said $2,000 high, and they said, sure, okay, we'll do that. Look, the reality is what the president did in terms of having them flip-flop on this, not only put them in an awkward predicament, but also served up a pretty solid talking point for the Democratic challengers in this final week. But the reality is people on the ground are going to vote for these Republican candidates because they truly want to see a check and balance on the Biden administration. The people of Georgia, while it has made great strides to turn more blue, it is still a conservative state. They do not want to have the Biden policies go without being checked, and they do want to have the Republican control in the Senate. And I want to add on to what Kyung Law said. When I was there last week in Georgia on the ground, these were not just at Loeffler and Perdue rallies, all across the state of Georgia, random places, random people, random street corners, people waving Trump flags because they do support President Trump. And while he might not have won, he does have a lot of support. The key is harnessing that energy and getting them out to vote next week.
Bakari, I want to know what you think about this, especially now with Loeffler and Perdue talking fatter checks. Are Democrats at a disadvantage now?
I mean, it's tough. I mean, Georgia is a tough state, but let's not forget that Joe Biden won this state by more than 10,000 votes. I mean, it was an extremely close race, but Joe Biden still won the state of Georgia. If anybody would have told you that Joe Biden was going to win Georgia before this election happened, then we would have all said they were fools. But that's not the case. And Stacey Abrams and many others laid the groundwork so that this was possible. I just want to use the language that was used earlier. You have two United States senators who are scared to death of the President of the United States who have contorted themselves into pretzels. I mean, that's simply what we're seeing. And I think that it gives great talking points for Raphael Warnock, gives great talking points for John Ossoff. But look, guys, let's not fool ourselves. This isn't a persuasion
소고기
election.
먹을
There's
거예요.
nobody sitting at home trying to make a decision about whether or not
150g?
to vote
200g
for
좀 안
Ossoff
됩니다.
or not.
확실히 200g은 좀 안 되고
This isn't that type of
소고기
race.
200g에 바나나 2개.
You have to go get the individuals who haven't voted in a long
거기에
time.
우유 조금.
You have to go get the individuals who work 9 to 5.
그렇게
who work
점심으로
sporadically, who
먹고
work part-time, who
저녁으로는
Look, you gotta go
떡볶이
get those
먹을
people
겁니다.
who do not show up, who are not
미리 다
the
음식을
super
사놨죠.
voters to come out and vote for you
오늘도
if
집에
you're going
있어야
to
되고
win this
내일도 집에
election.
있어야
So it takes voter contact.
내일
And we'll see who has the
모레는
best voter
새벽
operation,
출근.
whether or not it's Stacey Abrams or whether or not it's the bully
오늘도 11시에 잘
Well, he does
보고
have
내일은
the party
10시에
people.
잘
I mean,
보고
he's got the
열시
he's
이전에.
got ride or die. We'll see if that happens with Warnock and Ossoff. Kirsten, this puts Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell in a really tight spot. He says
와 날씨 진짜 좋네요.
the 2,000.
코로나 1000명 넘었죠
Maybe with
오늘도.
some poison pills Democrats can't vote for.
설날까지 갈 것
How do you
같아요.
see this playing out? Is there a chance Americans
설날까지
see
2.5
bigger
단계
checks?
쭉 갈 것 같고
Well, I don't
학원은
know if Mitch McConnell
3월 달에는 갈 수
is concerned
있을까요?
about, obviously, the senators in Georgia have their cover because they've been able to say that they support this, but at the same time, a lot of people in the conservative base don't like it. A lot of
백신 접종
senators don't
시작이라는데
support it, and so he seems more inclined in the direction of not wanting a vote to come up on this. So if I had to guess, my guess would be no, they probably aren't going to see these checks, which I think is a
항공
real
관련된
travesty.
건
And I have to say, I am just
네,
very, I don't even know what the word is. I'm mesmerized. Something about with these voters that you're describing, Alice, who are so consumed with this person who just lost an election. I can't think of any time in history where a losing candidate has this kind of cultish support behind them. that the only thing that they care about is whether or not these senators are aligned with a president that is not going to be in office anymore and is not really technically in control of the Republican Party anymore.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting. Alice, I'll get your response because I want to know how these voters are feeling, how these people are feeling, knowing that their checks were held up. Maybe they're going to get some more now, more money. When? Not sure. But the president out playing golf, I wonder about the optics of all this. We'll talk about it right after this break.
Wherever you are in the world, Lotte is always close to you. Lotte will be with you throughout the world until the name Lotte is synonymous with friendship. Your lifetime friend, Lotte.
와, 날씨 진짜 좋다. 날씨가 너무 좋습니다, 여러분. 하늘이 되게 푸르러요.
Another shot.
Back with the CNN Political Dream Team now. So President Trump back on the golf course today, lashing out at Republican lawmakers as Congress deals with the mess that the president actually made. Kirsten's back, Alice back, Bakari as well. So, Alice, Trump is resentful to the end, stirring the pot, calling Republicans weak and tired and still trying to convince people that he won.
영상을 찍으면서는 여기까지 하겠습니다.
Why all the arrows, especially
이제 좀
targeting Mitch
쉬었다가
McConnell and the GOP?
점심
Why
먹고
target his own party?
오후 운동할게요.
Precarious position now with the Senate.
Well, the main reason is because he's pissed that he lost, right? And so he's just taking it out on everyone. And it really, it makes no sense whatsoever. And